Well, it might surprise you to learn that there are more than 400,000 people on the consolidated terrorist watch list. There are also 6,000 people on the no-fly list. That means forget the government most likely probably watching over you. It means if you're on that list, you're prohibited from traveling. Did you book a flight to a business conference or getting ready for a long overdue vacation? Too bad, because if you're on that list, you are not going anywhere. Now, this, of course, makes sense, but what many people are trying to make sense of is why they're being punished for having the same or similar name as someone deemed unfit to fly. So I want to talk more about this with Jonathan Corbett, president of 410 Technologies. All right, Jonathan, so from what I understand, since 2009, the number of U.S. citizens on the FBI's terror watch list has more than doubled. What is going on here?
I mean, there's been a lot of organizations that have tried to estimate who's on the no-fly list from a lot of different sources, and I've heard the number vary from several thousand to several tens of. One of the problems with the no-fly list is that it's kept very secret. If you suspect that you're on the no-fly list, you can appeal that decision, but they won't actually confirm whether or not you're on the no-fly list. So right now, we don't actually know exactly how many people are on it, but we do know that a lot of people have had the issue where they've gone to an airport and have been told they're on the no-fly list, just despite obviously having no connections to terrorism.
I know that you have been a staunch opponent to the TSA. I know you've even illustrated how people can sneak bad or dangerous items on board. What do you think are some of the most problematic things about what we're seeing now with the TSA?
Well, as far as the no-fly list goes, the most problematic thing is that there's no accountability. So what the government is essentially saying is that these people that are named are so dangerous that they can't be put on an airplane, but not dangerous enough to be arrested on terrorism charges. And it bothers a lot of people that there's essentially no due process, and people are being punished for some kind of suspicion of terrorism without any kind of concrete evidence that would result in their arrest.
And sometimes, as we said, that just simply means, they have a common name, a name of somebody else on that list. What can we do about this, Jonathan? Short of, naming our children and or changing our names to something very unique?
Well, I mean, you could probably spell your name slightly differently and get past the automated systems, but in the end, we need a change from Congress on this one. The idea of again, a list of people that are so dangerous they can't fly on a plane, but not dangerous enough to take into custody is just absolutely absurd. It's an interesting idea to think of, and something that came out after 9/11, but in reality and in practice, it's just something that doesn't work.
It's just so interesting. I mean, as you say, after 9/11, of course everything changed, but this is something that seems was such a major shift and so dramatic, just gathering up all these names, making all these lists, these separate things. To what extent do you think, and perhaps we'll never really know the answer to this, but to what extent do you think this has made us safer?
To no extent at all. Just to say that an organized terrorist group can't create a fake identity or a fake identification document, a fake international passport with a different name, and go through with that different name is just absurd. The bottom line is, if we know who the terrorists are, we need to go and get them. We don't need to put them on a no-fly list. We need to actually stop the terrorism from happening. It's just a ridiculous system right now that ends up ensnaring in this. Were intentionally named on the list, but really have no terrorism connections, and people that are just incidentally caught up in this net. And the TSA has and really the FBI, who runs the list, have gone through some measures to limit that false matching, which is why we now see our gender and our birth date being collected when we fly on an airplane. That's kind of gets some false positives out on the no-fly list. But even those who are intended to be on the no-fly list still have not been shown to have any terrorist connections through actual evidence that could be used in a court. It's also very difficult to dispute your status on this list. If you dispute it with the TSA and they say, sorry, we can't help, your next step is the courts. But you actually don't have any evidence to bring to the courts. They won't even admit that you're on the no-fly list. So it's a very, very long uphill battle in the circuit courts of appeals, which is very expensive as well.
Jonathan, you used the word ridiculous. I want to play something really quick that a lot of people have found strange, if not ridiculous.
It happened Tuesday night at the airport in Fort Lauderdale. Rihanna and her parents had just boarded a JetBlue flight. They were heading home to New Jersey. They say that's when a JetBlue employee told them they had to get off the plane.
And I said, for what? And he said, well, it's not you or your husband. Your daughter was flagged as no fly. I said, excuse me?
So this little girl, a toddler, was actually flagged on this list, and they couldn't fly because of it. I mean, what do you make of this?
Well, I mean, that seems to be an apparent error. If you're on the no-fly list, you're not issued a boarding pass. So either JetBlue forgot to check the no-fly list before issuing a boarding pass, or they were on some other kind of list, or who knows what the reason was. But again, that's the problem is that people are being told that they can't fly, and they're not being told why.
Yeah, it certainly seems that there are some major holes in the system here. Jonathan Corbett, president of 410 Technologies, appreciate you being on today.